Welcome to the Bass Hole Podcast, the show where we talk bass fishing without the filters, the fluff, or the tournament politics. And I'm your host, Bob, from Bob's Bassin' and Stuff. And this is my co-host, Ray. And today, we're going to talk about compassion in the outdoors. Now, we had already decided to do this video before I saw a video by Randy Blaukat, where he talked about making a video where he said that he was not deer hunting anymore, even though he had deer hunted for years and killed hundreds of deer, but that the killing deer just hit him harder now than it used to. And so he had decided that he just didn't want to do it anymore. He didn't have the stomach for it anymore. And he caught a lot of flack from some of his commenters, calling him a sissy and questioning his manhood and worse. Randy has a lot of people that really get on him for some of his opinions, and some of it's justified, but a lot of it's not, and I certainly didn't think this was. Someone that has hunted and fished since I was a child, I can actually relate to what Randy said. As we get older, the compassion that we have for the prey or the animals that we're dealing with seems to grow. The mortality hits you a little more real than it did when you were young. Now, Ray, I've known you a long time, and I know that you are very compassionate towards animals. Yet you still hunt, you still fish. How do you feel on this subject?
Well, Bob, it's a real touchy conversation for me, because I do fish and I do hunt. Now, let's take in consideration, you've been hunting for double the years I have. I didn't start hunting until I was in my 30s.
Right.
And I've been hunting for 20 years now. But still, even when I started, it wasn't about compassion for the animal as much as, hey, it's a sport, and I didn't think about it like that as much. However, I still don't like harming animals. Now, people say, well, Ray, how do you kill a deer? First of all, I'm very picky. If I harm it, and I don't even call it killing deer. I like to say I harvest a deer. I'm doing it for food, okay? Not just for my family, but if it helps feed other families who can't afford food. But I'm very picky with it. I won't usually harvest a small yearling with a mother. It's got to be a good-sized doe, what I call one that's ready to be harvested. And like you said, it's about conservation. If we didn't hunt, what would it do to the animal population?
Right.
We'd be overran with it.
Which is unhealthy for them. It's unhealthy for the human population because you're going to have more car accidents,
that's right.
More damaged crops. There's a reason that we have a hunting season.
That's right. And one of the things I don't think people think about is if there was no hunting allowed, I don't think people understand the death that these animals have to go through, in the wildlife. Starvation.
Yeah, a natural death.
Yes, and it's very, very hard. So a lot of people don't think about that. They're just thinking about, you're out there killing an animal. And again, I'm not killing an animal. I'm harvesting. Let's go back to what you said about the older we get in hunting, like it affected you more. Now, you've talked to me about I've struggled more than I used to with it. And I've told you that I've struggled for years with it. And this is not a biblical thing, by all means, on this podcast, but I had to search within myself for many years, and I talked to pastors about it. You say, hey, am I doing it? Is this right? Throughout finding reasons and discussions, I've come to say it's okay, but I don't do it just to go out there and just to shoot an animal and say, I killed a big buck. When you get to that point and there's no compassion at all, if you don't feel for that animal, I don't think you should be hunting. I mean, that's me personally. It's not about going out there just trying to shoot a nice 8-point or 130, inch buck or 160, whatever the case may be. So it hits a little hard for me too. And I'll tell you, before I pull the trigger, I'm praying, saying, please let it be quick, minimal suffering. And then when I go to the animal to recover it, think about this. When you lay your hands on that animal, you're probably the first human beings ever put your hand on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's never had a human touch it.
Right.
So, first of all, you need to be thankful for that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'll pet the animal, I'll pray over the animal, and I'll thank the animal. So it's compassion for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you, there's times that, I'll go home that evening, and it'll be almost tear-jerking to know that I took an animal's life.
Right.
But I took it for the right reasons. For food, because, we eat deer meat in my house. We'll get into this part, but it's kind of like I'm a farmer. I raise cattle.
Right.
Okay? And it's, I'll even tell the people out there that, you go to the grocery store, you eat meat, you buy beef, you buy pork,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Chicken.
You're going to buy it, so you have no emotions connected to it, okay? But you still eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with it in your mind. But that animal's still going through a processing.
Right. And it was killed before it went through the process.
It was killed. Yeah. But I think what makes the difference is when, like me with my cattle, I know when I put it on that trailer and I take it, I know where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but at the same time, while I have those animals on my farm, in my possession, I'm taking care of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making sure they get fed. If they're sick, I get a vet to work on if
Mm-hmm.
need be. So I do everything in my responsibility, even though I know in the end what they're used for.
Right.
Okay?
And I've seen you bottle feed calves that the mothers wouldn't take.
Absolutely. The difference is when you're the one pulling the trigger. That's the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're actually doing it all.
Right.
That's the most heartfelt for me,
Mm-hmm.
knowing I'm the one that's responsible for taking that life.
Right.
Even though I know it's for the right reasons. So I'm not out there just saying, "Hey, we're going hunting today, and we're going to go kill a deer." And,
yeah.
No, it's deeper than that.
Yeah. And I used to be that way younger. I think maybe you did when you first started. It didn't hit you the same way. The mortality realization didn't hit you when you were younger like it does now as we're older. But yeah, I mean, I used to when I was young. It was all about let's go kill a deer, and now as I've told you, it's harder for me to go out there and take that life. And you actually showed me a really meaningful video about it was a video of a nice buck just walking, and there was captions that said that something along the lines of your reward is his life.
That's correct.
And that hit home and resonated with me because that's kind of how I'm feeling now.
Yeah.
And same as you, if I'm gonna take a deer, it's gonna be eaten. It's gonna be with as clean a shot as I can possibly get, so that the deer doesn't suffer. And the meat is not going to be wasted. His life isn't going to be wasted. It's going to feed someone. I share that same thing, but the older I get, the harder that gets for me. And so I really felt when Randy Blaukat was making that video, I really felt what he was saying. And it bothered me that there was people criticizing him for having that compassion and making that decision when I really thought that was his decision to make. And if that was the right decision for him, nobody had the right to question.
No, you're exactly right. I haven't seen that video. I can totally agree with it. And Bobby, if you think about it, we often question, ourselves. Why do we feel that way? You think it's because we're getting older and we're getting closer to death?
I do think that's a big part of it.
I do too. And so we're like, hey, I wouldn't want somebody just to take me out this early. But again, if we didn't hunt, they're actually going to have a more cruel death naturally than what we're doing. And we can go in more detail, but you always hear me say this. Let's talk about this for a second. You attempt to harvest a deer. Okay. Now, we all know, as hunters, if you've hunted long enough, you're going to miss or you're going to wound.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, wounding an animal hits me harder than anything.
Me too.
Knowing that I can't recover.
Same.
Okay, and it happens. I mean, there's no way around it. If you hunt as many years as we've hunted, It's going to happen. But if you always hear me say this, you'll see me track deer for hours and hours and go back the next day until I can safely say that animal probably lived. I can tell you on occasions that I've hunted, tracked deer for 8 to 10 hours, and you and I've done it together.
Seen it, yeah.
But my response to that is, why do I do it? Is because I say you owe it to the animal. And I'm a firm believer in that. And some people will just track a deer for 30 minutes, an hour, and say, oh, couldn't find it.
Right. And I've seen lots of people that do that. And when you and I first started hunting together, and I was physically able to track deer, we tracked them together for miles sometimes. And we drug them out of big holes and creeks and stuff like that. And one of the reasons that hunting now is harder for me to justify in my heart is because I physically can't make that effort. Now, if it wasn't for you volunteering to do that for me, I probably wouldn't hunt.
Right.
Because I can't go and think, I may shoot this deer and it run off, and I don't have the physical ability to go find it.
Right.
And knowing that I can say, Ray, can you help me? And when I get pooped where I can't go, I know you're going to keep going.
Yeah,
that's what's kept me hunting. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't do it.
Well, it's kind of like, we hunt with some individuals that's getting older. I mean, let's face it, your brother.
Right.
Okay.
And just so everybody knows, my brother's 76 years old.
Yeah. But he still loves to hunt.
Loves it.
And I remember talking about a story last season, not this past season that just finished, but the year before. He had harvested a deer, and I came out of my stand because I called him and said, was that you? And I went up there to him, and he was actually looking on the different opposite side of the power line in the woods.
Now, this was muzzleloading, right?
This was muzzleloading.
So he couldn't see the deer run off because of the smoke.
The smoke. He was in a blind, he couldn't see. And so, what I start looking for is any kind of sign where they entered the woods, kicked up leaves, stuff like that. So I found some blood. And so I tracked this deer. He got tired, and I told him, you just go sit down on that stump over there. And we looked for that deer. Well, I did after that, while he was resting for at least a couple hours. He pretty much says, I must have not got a good shot on it. And muzzleloader, that happens. He left, and I said, okay. So I went back to my stand. You know me, I spend hours in the woods. Most people hunt mornings or evenings. I'm an all-day hunter. I don't care what time of year it is. I love being in a stand just for observation. I couldn't sit there. About 2 o'clock in that afternoon, I thought, I can't let that animal knowing that it could be laying out there. So I got back out of the stand, and I went back through my routine, searching. And at one point, you have to think like a deer.
Right.
What would I do if I got hurt? Where would I go? So I started looking, and about 2 hours later, I found this deer. It's like a relief. It's like, wow, we're not just leaving this animal out here.
Right.
But folks, that don't always happen. Sometimes you won't recover. If you're compassionate and you're a true hunter, you will feel terrible about it.
Right.
Not to say you got to find ways to get over that, because it's going to happen. It's like fishing. Okay, we fish a lot together.
Right.
Nothing more I hate than a fish that swallows a hook.
Yeah.
And in my case, I do a lot of finesse fishing, and it happens.
Right.
You've seen how many times I say, please don't let this fish die. The difference in fishing and hunting, we're releasing.
Right. Yeah, we're catching and releasing, so we want them all to live.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, sometimes they get gut hooked, and there's nothing you can do. We do the best we can. I think, we will both stop fishing to work on getting a hook out of one fish.
Yes.
That either one of us may have caught that got gut hooked.
Yeah.
And or hook down the throat, not necessarily gut hook, but even if it's deep, we'll both stop fishing, and we'll work together to try and get that hook out.
We're like a surgical team.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, one will be the nurse, and the other will be the doctor trying to remove it. But,
and sometimes we've took it a little too far and a little longer than we should have. Said, hey, just cut the hook. It'll be okay. It'll come out. But that's because we're compassionate about that animal's life.
Right.
I think it's important. If you're going to be any kind of sportsman, whether it's fishing, hunting, bird hunting, I don't care what it is. I think the ethics have to be there.
Yeah, they should be.
If you don't have feelings for it, it's probably not a place you need to be.
Right. Well, and I've heard a lot of times people say it's just a fish, but I know it bothers me if we have a fish that we don't think is going to make it. I know it bothers you. I've seen that firsthand. And AJ that fishes with me sometimes and is our good buddy.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen him. He almost gets sick when something happens to a fish that either he's caught or I've caught while we were out fishing. That that may not make it. I mean, you see that, and for us, that's the norm. I mean, because we see it in each other, and so when someone's questioning someone else's manhood because of their compassion, that kind of ruffles my feathers a little bit. And so because I have that compassion, you have that compassion, AJ has that compassion, and to me that's the right way.
Of course it is. And like I say, when we're talking about deer, and I made the analogy with cattle. I could have cattle, and if one gets sick, I could say, well, it either lives or it dies.
Right.
That's your responsibility.
Right.
You took that on as responsibility. It's kind of like having a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's not a pet, but still, you're responsible for it.
That's right.
And you're the one that's feeding it, and you're the one that should care for it.
Absolutely.
And that's a great thing about the way you do that.
Yeah, and let's think about it. I'm trying to take care of these things and get them from life to the supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
So I want it to be healthy. I want it to be able to feed your families when you go to the grocery store. Again, you don't have to go through all that. That's my job.
Right.
And as relating to hunting, it's us that's taking the life versus the processing plant.
Right.
Very, very good subject, I think.
I think one maybe some people need to hear. I think especially other older outdoorsmen like ourselves that may be feeling this and wondering if that's the wrong thing, or some like you that may have questioned, should I be doing this? Mm-hmm. There's certainly reasons that you should be doing it. But if it gets to the point where it's bothering someone too much, then it's okay to stop.
It is okay.
And it doesn't make you less of a man. It doesn't make you a sissy or worse. Mm-hmm. If you have compassion for the animals that you're harvesting, or if you're catching fish and doing catch and release, and you have compassion, that's a good thing. And it should never be questioned as to whether that's right or wrong. And if you're questioning it, there's something wrong with you. I don't think it's something that should be taken lightly in the world of outdoor sports. There should be a respect for the lives of the animals. We appreciate you joining us. Hope this resonated with you. Tune in next time. We'll see you. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning in to the Bass Hole Podcast.